It was a quiet Saturday morning, the kind I usually loved. I woke up early, cleaned my small apartment, did my laundry, and made sure every corner sparkled before finally sitting down for breakfast. I had barely started washing my dishes when I heard a frantic knock at the door. Curious, I dried my hands and rushed to the sitting room. Standing at the door was Tunde, my next-door neighbor. His face was pale, and he looked like he had seen, well, a ghost. "I can't take this anymore," he exclaimed as he barged in without waiting for me to invite him. He began pacing up and down my sitting room, running his hands through his short hair. "I just can't." "Calm down, Tunde," I said, shutting the door behind him. "What's going on? Is this about her again?" Tunde stopped pacing for a second, looking at me with tired, bloodshot eyes. "At first, I thought it was a joke," he began, his voice trembling. "But wait," I interrupted. "You mean it's not a joke? Like, all this ghost stuff is real?" Tunde froze, then nodded slowly. "I'm done, Betty," he said in a low voice. "I can't do this anymore." "No, Tunde, you can't be done," I replied, stepping closer to him. "I've told you before, don't make decisions when you're angry." "I wish it was just anger," he said bitterly, shaking his head. "But you and I both know this is beyond that." I sighed. "But your wedding is next weekend. You're really going to cancel it now?" "It's cancelled," Tunde said flatly, without even looking at me. I stared at him, stunned. "Did something else happen? Or is this still about her seeing a ghost in your apartment? Isn't that enough?" Tunde shot back, throwing his arms in the air. "Last night, she screamed so loud, I thought she was being attacked. The neighbors almost broke down my door. But what if she actually saw a ghost?" I asked carefully. "Why would she be the only one seeing it?" Tunde snapped. "You've been to my apartment countless times. Have you ever seen anything strange?" I paused, shaking my head. "No, but..." "Exactly," he said, cutting me off. "It's only her. That's why I'm convinced there's something wrong with her." I leaned against the armrest of my couch and crossed my arms. "Or maybe the ghost is tied to her somehow. Maybe it's because she's your fiancé. There's a connection." Tunde looked at me, confused. "A connection? Are you saying she's cursed or something?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But it's possible. What if there's a witch somewhere targeting her?" "If there's a witch anywhere, it's her," Tunde said coldly, narrowing his eyes. "I've made up my mind, Betty. This whole thing has shown me that she's not the one for me." I frowned. "You're being ridiculous, Tunde. I know you love her." "Of course, I do," he said, his voice rising. "But what am I supposed to do? Ignore everything and marry her anyway? What if the ghost shows up on our wedding day?" He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. "I love her, Betty, but I love my sanity too." I softened my tone. "Have you told her how you feel?" Tunde nodded. "She just left my apartment. She was crying. She said I never loved her and that I was just using this as an excuse to dump her." "That's not true," I said firmly. "You and I both know that's not true." "I know," Tunde said, slumping onto the couch. "But what can I do? I can't keep living like this. I'm hurt, Betty, but I'm done. I quit." I watched him for a moment, unsure of what to say. He looked utterly defeated, like the weight of the world had crushed him. After a long pause, Tunde stood up and walked to the door. "Thanks for listening," he said quietly before stepping out. I stayed where I was, staring at the door long after he left. Tunde was my best friend, and I wished I could help him. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of his misery. A sly smile crept onto my face as I whispered to myself, "My name is Betty, and I'm the witch next door." The air in my apartment felt heavier after Tunde left. I leaned against the door, replaying our conversation in my head. His misery was palpable, his fear almost tangible. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for him. Tunde had always been so confident, so sure of himself. Watching him unravel like this was oddly satisfying. But I had to be careful. The timing of his fiancée's ghostly encounters wasn't coincidental. I moved to the kitchen, casually finishing the dishes. As I scrubbed, My mind drifted to the first time I noticed Tunde's fiancée, Aisha. Her presence had irritated me instantly, her bubbly laugh, her perfect skin, the way she clung to him like he was her lifeline. She was beautiful, yes, but she didn't belong here. She didn't belong with him. The thought sent a flicker of heat through me. No one steals what's mine, I murmured, rinsing the last plate. I dried my hands and walked to my bedroom. Hidden in the bottom drawer of my dresser was a small wooden box. I pulled it out carefully and placed it on my bed. The carvings on the box glowed faintly in the dim light. I opened it, revealing a collection of herbs, stones, and a single strand of Aisha's hair. "She's not the one," I whispered, my voice cold and steady. "And she will never be." I picked up a tiny black candle from the box and lit it, its flame flickering ominously. Closing my eyes, I began to chant softly, the words flowing from my lips like a melody. "Spirit of the restless, unseen and untamed. Bind her in fear, let her soul be stained. Let her see the shadows, let her scream in despair. Until she leaves him, till she's no longer there." The candle's flame grew brighter, then dimmed suddenly, as if acknowledging my command. I opened my eyes and smiled. That should do it. The next morning, I decided to check on Tunde. I knocked on his door lightly, and it swung open almost immediately. Tunde stood there, looking worse than yesterday. His eyes were sunken, his hair disheveled. "Betty," he said, his voice hoarse. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see how you're holding up," I said, feigning concern. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't," he admitted, stepping aside to let me in. "I kept hearing things in the apartment last night. Footsteps, whispers, but no one was there." I widened my eyes in mock surprise. "You're kidding. Are you sure it wasn't just your mind playing tricks on you?" "I don't know anymore," he said, sinking into his couch. "Everything feels off. Ever since I told Aisha it's over, it's like something's haunting me now too." My stomach flipped with excitement, though I kept my face calm. "Maybe you're just stressed," I suggested. "Breakups can be hard." Tunde shook his head. "No, this is different. I can't explain it, but it's like whatever was after her is now coming for me." I bit my lip, pretending to think. "Do you want me to stay here tonight? You know, just in case something happens?" His eyes lit up with relief. "Would you?" "I don't think I can handle another night like this alone." "Of course," I said, smiling. "What are friends for?" That night, I made sure to bring the wooden box with me, hidden in my bag. While Tunde prepared a simple dinner, I wandered around his apartment, murmuring incantations under my breath. As we ate, Tunde kept glancing nervously at the windows and the corners of the room. "Relax," I told him, placing a hand on his. "You're safe with me." "I hope so," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Little did he know, the game was only just beginning. Aisha was gone, but Tunde still had lessons to learn. And I was more than willing to teach him. After all, no one crosses the witch next door. The night stretched on slowly, and I could sense Tunde's unease growing. Every little creak in the apartment made him flinch. He sat on the edge of the couch, clutching a throw pillow like it was a shield against the invisible force tormenting him. I pretended to read a magazine, stealing glances at him now and then. His fear was delicious. "Betty," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. I looked up, feigning concern. "Yes." "Do you believe in ghosts?" he asked, his voice low, almost hesitant. I tilted my head, pretending to think. "I'm not sure," I said slowly. "I mean, I've heard stories, but I've never experienced anything myself." He sighed deeply, running his hands over his face. "I don't know what to believe anymore. First, Aisha sees them. Now, I hear things. What if it's not just her? What if something is really here?" I set the magazine down and leaned forward, placing a hand on his knee. "Tunde, you've been through a lot. Maybe it's all in your head, you know? Stress can do strange things to a person. But it's not just in my head," he snapped, his voice rising. "Betty, I'm not crazy. I heard whispers last night. I felt something cold touch me." I gasped softly. "Cold? Are you sure?" He nodded, his eyes wide with fear. It was like someone brushed past me, but no one was there. I squeezed his knee gently. Okay, let's say something is here. What do you want to do about it? Have you thought about, getting someone to check it out? You mean like a priest? Or a spiritualist, I suggested, shrugging. Sometimes, they can help with things like this. He hesitated, chewing on his bottom lip. I don't know. I just want it to stop. I smiled inwardly. It wouldn't stop, not yet. But I needed to keep playing the role of the helpful friend. Why don't we try something simple tonight? I offered. Like a cleansing ritual. I read somewhere that burning sage can help chase away spirits. Tunde nodded eagerly. Okay, let's try it. Do you have any sage? I reached for my bag, pulling out a small bundle of sage I had prepared earlier. Of course, it wasn't just sage, it was laced with herbs that would amplify his paranoia. Lighting the sage, I walked around the apartment, chanting softly under my breath. Tunde watched me intently, his eyes darting around as if expecting a ghost to jump out at any moment. When I finished, I set the smoldering sage on a plate and placed it in the center of the room. There, I said, smiling. That should help. Tunde exhaled shakily. Thank you, Betty. I don't know what I'd do without you. The real fun began around midnight. Tunde had fallen asleep on the couch, and I pretended to be dozing in the armchair. Quietly, I opened my wooden box and pulled out a small charm I had crafted, a crude figure made of twigs, bound together with red string. Placing the charm near the front door, I whispered a spell, my voice barely audible. The air in the room seemed to grow colder, and I smiled. Tunde stirred on the couch, his brow furrowed. Betty, he called out groggily. Yes, I replied, keeping my voice calm. Do you feel that? It's cold. I nodded. It's probably just the Harmattan breeze, I said, though we both knew the windows were closed. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the kitchen. Tunde bolted upright, his eyes wide with fear. What was that? He whispered. I stood slowly, feigning confusion. I don't know. Maybe something fell? Tunde shook his head. No. That sounded like footsteps. Another thud, this time louder, sent him scrambling off the couch. Betty, I can't do this, he said, his voice trembling. I walked over to him, placing a hand on his arm. Calm down, Tunde. Let's check it out together. Reluctantly, he followed me to the kitchen. Of course, there was nothing there. See? I said, gesturing to the empty room. It's probably just the building settling. But Tunde wasn't convinced. He kept glancing over his shoulder, his body tense. By the time morning came, Tunde was a wreck. He barely spoke as I gathered my things to leave. Betty, he said quietly as I opened the door. Yes. I turned to look at him, my face the picture of innocence. Do you think I'm cursed? I smiled softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. I think you're just going through a rough patch. But don't worry, I'll always be here for you. He nodded, though his eyes remained clouded with doubt. As I walked back to my apartment, I couldn't help but laugh softly. Tunde was mine now. Whether he realized it or not, he would never escape me. Because no one crosses the witch next door. And no one ever leaves unscathed. Tunde's knock came earlier than usual one Saturday morning. I was in the middle of rearranging my books when I heard it. My first instinct was to ignore him, I needed some space after last night's drama. But the knock came again, softer this time, almost hesitant. I opened the door and found him standing there, his face somber. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his shoulders slumped like he was carrying the weight of the world. Betty, he started, his voice hoarse, can we talk? I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. What's wrong now, Tunde? Did another ghost visit you? He shook his head quickly. No, it's not about that. I've been thinking about us. About what happened back in school. I raised an eyebrow. Us. There is no us, Tunde. He winced at my words but pressed on. I was stupid back then. I know I hurt you, Betty. I ruined your relationship with Femi, and I never apologized. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe I was jealous, maybe I was just immature. But I'm sorry. I blinked, caught off guard by his sudden confession. Femi. The name felt like a distant echo, a reminder of a time when I wasn't the person I had become. It's been years, Tunde, I said carefully. Why bring it up now? Because I can't stop thinking about it, he admitted, his voice cracking. You were my closest friend, and I betrayed you. And now, seeing how you've been there for me through all of this. I don't deserve it, Betty. But I want to make it up to you. Please, let me try. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face. Another part, one I thought I had buried, wanted to forgive him. I'll think about it, I said finally, stepping back and closing the door before he could say more. Weeks passed, and Tunde didn't bring it up again. He still came over often, sometimes with food, sometimes just to sit in silence. Slowly, I found myself softening. Maybe it was the way he looked at me with genuine regret, or the way he tried so hard to make me laugh even when he was clearly still terrified of the ghosts. One evening, as we sat on my couch watching a movie, he turned to me suddenly. Betty, have you forgiven me? I sighed, setting down my mug of tea. Tunde, I told you I'd think about it. And I guess I have, I admitted reluctantly. His face lit up with relief. Thank you, he said softly. You don't know how much that means to me. There was a pause, and I felt his gaze linger on me. Betty, I want to ask you something. I turned to him, raising an eyebrow. What now? Would you go on a date with me? I froze. Of all the things I thought he might say, this wasn't one of them. A date? I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. Yes, he said, his tone earnest. I know I've been a mess lately, but you've been my anchor, Betty. You're smart, funny, and you've always had my back. I want to get to know you better, as more than just a friend. I stared at him, my mind racing. This wasn't part of the plan. I'd spent so much time tormenting him, driving Aisha away, making him question his sanity. And now he wanted to date me? What if he found out? What if he ever uncovered my secret? Tunde, I began carefully, are you sure about this? I mean, you just broke off your engagement. Maybe you're not thinking clearly. I've never been more sure about anything, he said, reaching for my hand. I don't care about the past. I just want to move forward with you. I pulled my hand back, my heart thudding. This was dangerous territory. Accepting his proposal meant opening myself up to him in ways I wasn't sure I could. What if he saw the wooden box? What if he pieced together the truth? I need time to think, I said finally, standing up and walking to the window. Take all the time you need, he said softly. I'll wait, Betty. No matter how long it takes. As I watched him leave that night, my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to say yes, to finally let someone in. But the other part, the witch who had spent years perfecting her craft, knew better. No one could ever know the truth. Not even Tunde.